Welcome to the 700 Club. A preemptive strike may have stopped a massive Hezbollah attack on Israel. Israeli warplanes took out thousands of Hezbollah missiles ready to launch at the Jewish state.
The terror group fired more than 300 rockets and drones, which did little damage. Now Israel's prime minister is sending a warning to Iran and Hezbollah. There's more to come. CBN's Julie Stahl reports.
Israel sent more than 100 jets to attack dozens of sites in Lebanon Sunday morning, destroying more than 1,000 rockets Hezbollah planned to launch at Israel.
As soon as we identified Hezbollah's intention to carry out the attack, we thwarted the majority of the attack. Hezbollah attempted to severely harm the north and center of Israel, but was met with an iron fist.
Thousands of missiles and drones were primed to be launched against civilians in Israel. Had these missiles and drones flown, the death toll would have been in the thousands with massive damage.
Hezbollah's leader insists Israel started the trouble and his terror group reacted in defense.
It was an aggression, not a preemptive act. If we assume that it was a preemptive act, then it had no impact at all on our military operations.
Hezbollah managed to launch 320 rockets and attack drones. The terror group reportedly targeted Israeli intelligence targets in central Israel. The only Israeli casualty was a sailor killed by shrapnel falling from the sky. Israeli Ambassador Michael Herzog believes the preemptive strike may have prevented a wider war. But he says the threat on the northern border remains, making it impossible for thousands of Israelis to live in their own homes along that border.
We have nearly 70,000 people in Israel, northern Israel, away from their homes, refugees in their own country, and we have to make sure they can go back safely to their homes.
Herzog also noted that the strong U.S. military presence is helping deter Iran. 2 carrier groups are now in the region. The White House is still pursuing a ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza and bring the region back from the brink of war. However, Hamas has still not accepted a deal.
It is incumbent on all parties in the region to work towards de-escalation and stability. And so we are feverishly working in Cairo as we speak with our team and the teams of the other mediators, as well as with the Israelis, to get to a ceasefire and hostage deal.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the fight with Hezbollah and Iran is far from over. Monday afternoon, Israel carried out strikes on a Lebanese border town near the city of Sidon.
Nasrallah in Beirut and Khamenei in Tehran should know that this is another step on the path to changing the situation in the north and returning our residents safely to their homes. And I repeat, this is not the end of the story.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Jonathan Conricus is a former spokesman for the IDF and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. He joins us now for more from Tel Aviv. So what exactly did the Prime Minister Netanyahu mean by that there's going to be more?
Yeah, first of all, shalom. Thank you for having me. That's the part of the sentence that really is a question mark, because if we judge the actions by Israel over the last 2 days, I do not see really a change of strategy. I don't think that Israel has made a decision to do more than just preemptive defensive activities and actually start having Hezbollah and Iran pay a price for attacking Israel. If Israel were to make that strategic shift, then I think the region would look differently. But the fact of the matter is that today, when Israelis woke up in northern Israel, there's incoming rockets, there's sirens, and there's, again, violations of Israeli sovereignty. And as the ambassador said, there's about 70,000 people that are still refugees in their own country. That indicates that Israel has not, in fact, shifted strategy. So maybe the last line was more of a small threat towards Iran, that if they try it again, Iran and Hezbollah, if they try it again, Israel will be ready. But the big question that really has regional consequences is, has Israel's changed strategy? And sadly, I don't think that Israel has.
Where's the UN in all of this? After the Israeli pullout, the UN was supposed to create a zone in southern Lebanon that would be weapons-free. That's obviously not the case on the ground. Where are they in all of this?
They are absent and lacking of any relevance, sadly. And of course, had they been doing their job, had about 15,000 UN soldiers with a yearly budget of about $550 been actually implementing their mandate, which was stipulated by the Security Council to create a weapons-free zone in southern Lebanon. Had they been doing their job, then we wouldn't be in this situation that we are now. Israelis wouldn't have been evacuated from their homes, and Lebanese wouldn't be suffering. But sadly, that isn't the case. And you know, well, what makes it even worse is that if you now go back and read the reports that the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, that's the name of the force there, that they filed over the years to the Security Council, once every year, twice every year, they filed reports. If you read through the reports, you could wrongfully believe that everything's okay and that they're actually doing their job. That's what they reported for about 15, 16 years that they were deployed. But the sad reality on the ground is that Hezbollah owns southern Lebanon, is armed to its teeth with advanced Iranian weaponry, and they're using Lebanon as a launch pad in order to attack Israel, which, by the way, makes Lebanon, the state of Lebanon, accountable and responsible as well.
Let's talk about the sort of the strategic play here. If this were happening in the United States, let's just say Canada, Toronto decided to launch missiles into Buffalo, we wouldn't tolerate it. It would, you know, it wouldn't be let's build an Iron Dome to intercept the missiles. It would be, well, let's go take Toronto. So is there fear that somehow there'll be a much larger regional war, that this could trigger off multiple countries ending up in war against Israel?
Yeah, you're right, sir. There are things that countries like the US can do, and there are things that we, a small country in the Middle East, surrounded by enemies, many times are not allowed to, or are explained. It's explained to us that it's not in our interest to do so. And, you know, the strategic question is a question that I think we should have asked ourselves many years ago. Why did we allow this Iranian proxy to become so heavily armed? You know, when you look at Hezbollah's weapons, they have nation-state capabilities. They have an arsenal of between 150 and 200,000 rockets. They have missiles. They have lots and lots of troops. They have tunnels. They have advanced weapons that no other non-state actor has. They even have more weapons than quite a lot of European countries have today. And the strategic question that begs answering is, how did we get there? Why didn't we stop Hezbollah from achieving these capabilities before it did so? And as we look forward, yes, your concern about the regional war are definitely there. That is what we are at the brink of. If the IDF hadn't preempted the Hezbollah strike, then we could have been in a situation with lots and lots of casualties in Israel. We would have been forced to respond against such an aggression, and then that could have spiraled out into a regional conflict, which I think isn't in the interest of Israel or other countries in the region. So it's a very tense time, but we're about 24 hours after, a little bit more than 24 hours after the Israeli preemptive strike. So far, a tense calm is presiding, but with an enemy like Hezbollah, you never know what's next.
Well, let's move to Iran, because they're obviously the puppet master, if you will. They're the ones who are behind all of it. They're saying that they're holding off on a retaliatory strike against Israel to allow time for a ceasefire. Do you think that that's the real reason? Are there other reasons they're holding off?
Yeah, of course, the Iranians are not only puppet masters and puppeteers, but they're also very good at spin and propaganda. And what my assessment, and I'm not the only one who assesses this, is that the Iranians kind of jumped the gun when a few weeks ago they vowed, and this was said by the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic himself, that they were going to avenge the killing of a terrorist leader in Tehran a few weeks ago. That was unusual behavior from the Iranians because they usually make smarter and more cool-headed decisions. But since they said that and committed to attacking Israel, not much has happened. And I do not believe that the reason for the Iranians not attacking Israel is any regard for ceasefire or anything of a benign nature. The Iranians are not attacking because they are fearful of the Israeli response. And they know that their air defenses are penetrable. They know that our air defenses, also thanks to the U.S. joint investment and joint development of missile defense, which we are very thankful for, they know that Israeli air defenses are solid and almost airtight, and they know that their defenses are weak and penetrable, and that's why I think they're thinking hard twice and three times about attacking Israel.
Let's talk about an even deeper strategic position, and it's one that's worried me since October last year, that somehow or other Israel is going to come out of this so tarnished on the world stage that it's going to be very hard. I'm deeply concerned with Senator Warren out of Massachusetts, senator from Vermont, who's long been a critic of Israel, but they're now claiming that the U.S. cannot support Israel with weapons because of what is currently going on in Gaza. Is there concern in Israel about the overall reputation? And it just seems odd that Sinwar is saying we have Israel right where we want them. Is this one where you can win the battles but lose the larger war?
Yes, sir. Israel is facing a war on various fronts, one of them being the information front and the court of public opinion. In it, we are not faring too well. On the ground, we are defeating our enemies in Gaza and to a certain extent in Lebanon, but we are not faring well enough when it comes to diplomacy, and there are powerful forces that are teamed up against Israel. There's Russian misinformation, there's Iranian money, including in U.S. campuses, and Qatari money in U.S. politics, and there are lots and lots of external influences that are trying to undermine the legitimacy of the state of Israel to exist and to defend itself, and to weaken the strategic bond between the U.S. and Israel. I am concerned by it, but I am also happy whenever I travel to the U.S. I just participated with CUFI, their annual conference, and I speak with a lot of non-Jewish groups and organizations, and I'm very strengthened by the level of grassroots support for Israel, which is strong, solid, and persistent, which is also translated into political power and elected officials who vote continuously in favor of the U.S.-Israeli relationship. So to summarize, yes, there's room for concern, and it is a very difficult fight that we're fighting, but there's also a lot of room for optimism because the grassroots support, especially in the U.S., for the U.S.-Israel alliance is strong. People understand that it serves American and Israeli interests and that it serves those countries both well on a moral but also on the level of interest. And I think that will be something that will stay around. But there are significant challenges stacked up against Israel, for sure.
Well, we encourage you and encourage you to stay strong in the midst of all these many threats. We stand with you, and you can count on us. Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, sir, and God bless.
In other news, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dropped out of the presidential race, throwing his support to Donald Trump. Now Trump is facing criticism from some of his strongest supporters over his recent statements on abortion. Dale Hurd has the story.
It began with a post by former President Trump on Truth Social that said, "My administration will be great for women and their reproductive rights." Then over the weekend, Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance said they would not support a federal ban on abortion. Vance even said Trump would veto such a bill if it came to his desk. Trump told CBS News the issue is back in the hands of states where it belongs.
It's now in the hands of the people. The federal government should have nothing to do with this issue.
Donald Trump's view is that we want the individual states and their individual cultures and their unique political sensibilities to make these decisions, because we don't want to have a nonstop federal conflict over this issue.
Trump also told CBS he would not enforce the Comstock Act to block delivery of abortion drugs.
You would not enforce the Comstock Act?
I would not do that.
Tony Perkins, the president of the Family Research Council, responded with this post on X. The Democratic National Committee has the corner on the abortion market. Trump is not only suppressing his own support, he's going to hurt the vast majority of Republican candidates who are 100% pro-life. The national president of Students for Life, Kristen Hawkins, posted about the Trump campaign, "It's like they're giving a class on how to lose a presidential election. Cowardly, immoral, and politically stupid." Lila Rose, founder of the anti-abortion group Live Action, criticized Trump on her podcast for trying to ingratiate himself with those that are pro-abortion.
Newsflash to the Trump campaign: you're not going to win over the left who already hates you. Now's not the time to try to sound like Kamala Harris. The Trump campaign says Trump's Truth Social post is in line with his previous positions on abortion. The campaign press secretary said, as President Trump has consistently stated, he supports the rights of individuals in their respective states to determine their laws on abortion. Trump has frequently taken credit for the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade through his appointment of 3 conservative justices. Trump's abortion controversy comes after a week when Democrats repeatedly went after him on the issue of abortion at the Democratic National Convention and calling for protection of abortion access. Marjorie Dannenfelser, president of SBA Pro-Life America, posted that the short-term urgent threat is a Harris-Walz administration promising unlimited full-term abortions. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, in the absence of Roe versus Wade, even some very liberal Supreme Court justices said that it was wrongly decided, that it was based on a penumbra, which is a shadow on the moon, of the Constitution, and somehow or other it got elevated into this constitutional right that people earnestly believed it. And now in its absence, we're into democracy. And democracy is kind of like making sausage. You don't really want to see how it's made. But in that democracy, we get to have our voice. We get to have our vote. And we get to vote our conscience. I remind Christians that for 2,000 years, we have stood against abortion. You look at the Didact, which was a manuscript. We have it today. You can get it in an English translation. Just search on Google for it's spelled D-I-D-A-C-H-E. It's pronounced Didact. It's called a teaching. In that, it's very specific. Christians do not expose infants, which was a practice in the ancient world. If a father didn't like a child, he would take it to the wilderness and just leave it. He would expose it. So that would be shortly after birth. But then Christians did not allow abortion. Abortion was done through herbs and medicine and, of the day. And they said, no, we don't do that. We value life. We think life begins at conception. We think that God is involved in that he has created things and given us the power to give life. And in that, we value it. It's been our history for 2,000 years. It should continue to be our history. We should continue to stand for the rights of the unborn.